Hi everyone, welcome back to Fab and Co. Today we're going to do the sensational Yumi cells. I'm so excited. So, as you know, with Fab and Co, what we do is we go over the plot of the drama, and then we talk about the character development and the characters, and then we go over some tropes and montage in addition to the highlights of the drama for us personally, and then we give it a rating and also a rewatch power with addition to the OST, because we do love a good OST. Okay, Kazara, as usual, can you please give us the plot of Yumiya?
Yumi, yeah. So Yumi, she works I think she's an assistant manager in an office. And basically she's just an ordinary, she's just going through life. She's not happy, she's not sad. She's a load of different emotions essentially. And then you have Goo Woong, who's a game developer. And their path cross because essentially Yumi is going through a heartbreak. She's been going through a heartbreak for a number of years.
Yeah.
But and then this guy that she was working with who she had a crush on, and then later found out that
I
he
mean,
was
how?
yeah was like, oh, I have a friend and I think you work together. At first, when Yumi first met him, she didn't really like him. She thought he's not my type, he's got a beard, he's a bit scruffy, but
A
then they end
bit.
up yeah, and then they end up dating. And then the good thing about this drama is that you can see essentially he's got a cartoon element to him, and it's basically the inner workings of Yumi. You have like love cell, you have the shopping cell, you have the food cell.
Yeah.
So just, and it's like it adds that aspect of comedy, and so does Wong as well. You can see the inner aspect of how like love and like it's different emotion. It basically is thought processes,
Yes,
and all their thought processes as well. And those are the two main characters. And then you have side characters. You have assistant manager Babi as well. He's a man, just to make it it's not Barbie.
yeah.
And then you have other people around them, and you have Rubia as well.
Oh, yeah.
Who,
Repeat.
yeah. And then you have like just different people in their lives. You have like Seiyi, who works with Wong as well. So those are the main two, but then you have everyone else who sort of rotates around them.
So yes, Kazara beautifully described the plot. So that's the plot. And then next we're going to go into the characters. So
wait, quick thing. Before I forgot to fully describe just a tiny bit of the plot. Basically, throughout the journey, we see a relationship between Wong and Yumi, and like the ups and downs and the things and all of that throughout.
The
So essentially,
turbulence of a relationship, basically.
yeah, it's the start to begin end.
Yeah. So what makes Yumi cells different from other dramas is, like Kazara said, we get to see the inner working of their emotions. So with this, it's kind of similar to like Disney's Mind. So what we see is how they feel. So for example, jealousy, anger, everything, they have like, they become little animated cells. And then it becomes a case of, your inner most thoughts and then the feeling that you fight before you actually act something out. So for example, if you were working and all of a sudden you become hungry, in the cell, it will show you that it's a result of the hunger cells destroying the village, which is like, your brain or your heart. And then that's why it's happening. And then if you feel some type of way, the cell that's predominantly attached to that feeling is usually the dominant cell. And then you see that. So that's why it's quite interesting, because you see the thought process behind every action that somebody does. And it's very interesting because at first it's hilarious. And then as we go gradually and we start understanding the characters, it becomes a case of, oh, wow, that cell shouldn't have, become dominant, for example, with Wong's behavior. But we get to that. So now we'll talk about character development. And for me, personally, I felt like in the first 13, 14 episode, Yumi did not develop. So like Kazara said, she actually was very heartbroken because she just came from a different relationship. And with that relationship, our old boyfriend that she did her 20s with broke up with her to become I think to go with his best friend that's female. So that literally left her heartbroken and also a bit betrayed, because she always did tell him that I felt like there was something between you people, but nothing happened. And then all of a sudden her boyfriend broke up with her, so she had that pain and burden that she was carrying along. So she was literally just living a life day in, day out. Like, she goes to work, she comes home, she goes to work, she comes home. There was nothing like exciting about her life, until she then decided to have a crush on a work colleague. And then it turns out he didn't like her, but he introduced her to Wong. And then from there, things propelled quite nicely until, relationship turbulence happened. So that was nice. So I like the fact that towards the end of the relationship, so spoiler alert, the relationship did end, but towards the end, her rational self, not rational self, sorry, like the judge, like the ultimate self that makes decision for them, realized that, you know what, you can't be in this relationship if you don't consider breakup, because you're going to try to latch onto him, and we can't have that, because number one, you're going to look pathetic, and number two, you don't want to be somewhere where someone doesn't want you. So I really like the fact that she then matured, like, okay, you know what, as much as my prime self, which is her ultimate self that embodies her as a person, was a love cell, she had to realize that, you know what, I need to take this into my hand, because this is not what I want. I feel a bit miserable here, and I can't keep doing this to myself, because I owe it to myself to be true to myself. So she had to bring up the breakup card, which she eventually used. But I like that character development, because if it was the old Yumi, she would never have even thought of that. So I like that character development for her. What about you, Kalzara? Who did you feel
I
like?
agree as well. Like there was a scene where they were showing what the characters put first, and Wong always puts himself first, which
That's
is
right.
great for him. But Yumi always puts others above herself.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that she developed towards the end to put herself first rather than Wong. And I think one thing about Wong's character development is that the fact that even though Yumi, basically from his perspective, everything he did was to protect Yumi. Because even when they were showing who's still like in his top 10 list, Yumi was still like number one or number two. But the way he went about it just wasn't right for the relationship. He was quite selfish. But in his head, he thought everything he was doing was for Yumi's protection.
Yeah.
So, for example, they'd been dating for almost a year and a bit.
Mm.
He so his game company was struggling, and he decided to sell his house, and he didn't tell Yumi for 1 month.
Yes.
And then she found out. And then so he makes decisions without asking Yumi. Or like, for example, that one's not a good example, but there was another
It
example
was just,
where
I think, you know what, with Yumi self, sorry to interrupt you, I think it's just a lot of little things that came together, because like you said, it was a case of neglecting to tell her important information. So for example, when say moved into his apartment complex, right, he didn't tell her. And the thing with Wong is that he's a smart guy, so he knew that if he avoids this, it will actually, you know, avoid telling Yumi, because he knew she was going to be upset. But then he was like, oh, I'm trying to protect her. But then she doesn't like that, and she's told him over and over again that you need to tell me when things are happening, because I tell you everything, but you don't do the same for me. But then he's like, oh no, I'm protecting you because I know how you feel. And she's like, if you know how I feel, why would you do it? So it's a case of what is going on. So yeah, that was something. And the reason why Wong was just a bit of I would say orange flag, was because he does a lot of things. For example, his best friend is a female called Sei, and they went to uni together, and they're also working together in the game developing company that he started, right? But then the problem is, once upon a time he liked Sehi, and then once upon a time Sehi was like, oh, you know what, you might be my backup in case anything happens. But Sehi never really reciprocated any advances he made towards her. So like now, Wong then moved on to Yumi, and then Sehi became jealous and thought, you know what, I need to get him back, and started doing a lot of self-sabotaging stuff. And then Wong knows this, but he doesn't stop her. Instead, they brush off like, oh, that's just Say. She does this all the time. And obviously, speaking,
and one thing to say is that he made one thing I didn't like was in the beginning we think Say is some self-sabotaging, can't let go of Wong. But then towards the end we found out that he actually liked Say at one point. So throughout that he made it seem like she was clinging on to him when it was him allowing himself to be clung onto. Like he never during.
So basically, he wanted his cake and he wanted to eat it. So he wanted his relationship with, Yumi, and he also wanted his friendship slash romantic, whatever advance
Wanted
that
someone
would
to
happen.
sign it over
Yeah,
him.
and
Yeah.
I just didn't like that, because it wasn't like brutally honest. Because I get that obviously, they're friends for such a long time, but out of respect for Yumi, I expected him to say something like, "Oh no," because he did try to like avoid any advances that Say was making, but that was not good enough, because you could just tell her to outrightly stop. But then he chose not to, because he was trying to protect her because of the type of person or type of background she had. So that
Yeah.
was something, but I just didn't like that.
And one thing as well that I felt like it was character development, but it was in a negative way. It was like that unveiling of what Wong is actually like as a person. Like he moved into Yumi's house, they started living together. Yumi's thinking this is the next stage, us living together, and then we might get married. Yumi was already there, she could already see her life with him, and she accepted all his flaws, but he was too prideful. And then when he was moving out of Yumi's house. He just told her, I'm moving out. He didn't even ask her, what do you think of this? Are you okay with this? He just thought, oh, I can't live. It was all about, I can't live in my girlfriend's house. It's too embarrassing. I need to stay on my own 2 feet. Just tell her that. Tell her.
And
I thought
what was quite sad was that literally he would rather be poor than put his pride aside. So he had like, I think £10 left when he decided to move out, right? The equivalent of Korean £10. And he still decided to move out and just lived in like a college dorm, which is a big downgrade from someone who literally owned their own house. And then he had to sell his house because his company was not doing quite well. So for that, you wouldn't literally put your pride aside. And then when we saw the inner working of his brain, it turns out it's always his pride first. So he could say a lot of things to explain the situation so it doesn't become misunderstood. But it's a case of, if it did say this, his pride would be hurt because obviously he's saying the truth and how it felt. But then his inner self was like, no, the priority is always Wong, and that would always be the priority. So a lot of things like that happened. And I'm just like, oh, I don't like this. I actually don't like this. And there was also the churro scene for me where Wong literally, this is the scene that happened. Yumi wanted to get churros in a different district, and then fortunately for her, there was a wedding from Wong's colleague that was going on in that district. So she said, you know what, let's go on a date to that district, and then after that, we're going to get churros. So like obviously churros is like Spanish, so in Korea it's going to be quite popular. So they got to the churros line, and then it was like a 30-minute queue, and then Wong started complaining, saying, oh, it doesn't really understand why people queue. And then she was like, what do you mean? And then he was like, oh, it doesn't get the idea. Like, why queue for something that you want? If you can't get it, just let it go. So that already tells you what type of person it is. Like, if it's something that requires a lot of effort and stuff, it just doesn't want it. It's a very, like, in his nature, he's quite easygoing. Like, the way he dresses and everything, he doesn't care about what people think. It's just him. Like, he's literally his own number one priority. So he doesn't care about any other social influence. But then Yumi was like, oh no, I want this. And then they started moaning like, oh, I just don't get it. And then she was like, oh, shall we just go to another place? And he said, yeah, sure, let's go. And then at that moment, I just felt bad for Yumi because I was like, you should have stood your ground. But I guess obviously you want to compromise in a relationship. Boy, this is what you want. Because if that was for Wong and there was like an hour queue, Yumi would wait in that queue for him because she just wants his company. So why couldn't he reciprocate the same feeling?
I feel like for me, the saddest moment was when he said he was moving out after the heat
and the chair breaking or the table breaking.
Big miscommunication. Wong does want to marry Yumi because we saw like there was a scene where he buried marriage deep in his conscience, but he moved a bit because of Yumi. But rather than saying that I want to get married, like rather than being just basically all he does is Yumi's the type of person where she needs reassurance. She needs some level of reassurance that okay, but he doesn't reassure her at all. He keeps it all in his head. So he makes her insecure. So this whole marriage talk thing, and then she brushed it off, and he could have brought it up, but he didn't. Like, the whole marriage talk thing, like right now I'm not ready to get married. Maybe later we can think about it, but I do want to marry you. But instead he just sat there like an idiot, thinking, being in his own head rather than being in front of the person who needs to be in front of them. And the same with the moving out thing as well. And he broke a chair in Yumi's house. He broke the table. And he decided to try and pay her back. You're broke. You literally
had £100, and the chair was the table was £2,000.
Yeah, you are broke, my G. You do not have the finances to be doing something as reckless. Stop it. And he was like, no, I need to pay her back. I've never seen, I mean, I like it. It's admirable that he's trying to do something like that, but you're dumb. You're in a relationship with a girl. You've been with her for a year. Would it not be right for you to say, and she was really getting annoyed, like, why do you, it's almost that kind of like divide and conquer. Like, I need to pay her back for like a teaspoon of oil. I need to pay her back for every single thing. Kind of thing. Because
it didn't really feel like I think him moving in, because you know the funny thing with Wong, right, is that when a situation happens, his initial thought is the right thought, which is, oh, I'm going to explain to her, this is not what happened, this is what happened. And then is what to call his rational self comes and like, oh no, because if we say this, it's too much words and his pride will be hurt. So for example, when Yumi said, oh, let's get married, initially it was actually very happy and it was about to say, yes, let's get married. But then the rational self came and said, oh no, we don't have the finances to do that, which is true. It doesn't have the finances to get married because marriage is an expensive, milestone. So he was ready to say, oh, you know what, I would love to get married to you. However, right now I'm not financially stable. Give me some time to get financially stable and then we can move on. But then his pride got in the way, saying, oh no, we can't tell her when, we're like this because we don't know what's going to happen. So just tell her no.
Yeah.
Or just don't answer. I think it was don't answer. And then obviously it's a case of the silence is like the ticking hour of trying to fill in the silence. So, oh God, that was just, everything just went downhill from there.
Yeah, it was too much. And also the ending for me was perfect. They
Yes,
needed to break up. I
they
feel like
did.
one needed to do some growing. But one thing I didn't like about the ending, and which literally like put the nail in the coffin about what I thought of Wong, was when he didn't even try to fight for her. He was just like, well. Like, so they had a break and then they came together to make a final decision. Are they going to stay together or are they going to go?
Yeah.
Imagine
like, I don't know, because like for me personally, I thought they were going to come back together and make some growth because, sometimes Yumi does, over, like, her emotions gets the best of her and then she over exaggerates a situation that can be quite simple. But then you need to realize that it's coming from a place of insecurity. And because she already has insecure feelings about Sehi and then everything keeps piling off. Like, for example, when they were literally the beginning of them dating and Sehi gave him a citron tea. And then all he has to say was like, oh, my friend Sehi gave it to me. But then it was like, oh, I don't remember. And maybe he didn't remember. But then later on, it could have been like, oh, yeah, it was her. But then it was like, oh, no. And obviously, that already was a red flag in Yumi's head.
He remembered. He even had a little flashback. He remembered.
So, like, I was just like, oh, no, no. This is going to be something. So that was quite sad. But then, anyways, like Kazara said, they needed to break up because both of them do needed growth. Like, I felt like Wong didn't really get Yumi as a person, and neither did Yumi get Wong, because Yumi just like, why don't you just say what's on your mind? Because she always says what's on her mind, because Yumi's cell, her rational and her sensitive cell, very crazy. Like, a sensitive cell is just all over the place. Like, she's very like she's a quite a dominant emotion, so she does tend to get sensitive in some situations she couldn't, and that just leads to a bit of a spiral outbreak. For example, when she met the ex and then she started saying she's gonna get married. Oh my God, that was such an embarrassing episode. But one came over and then he actually used his initiative to, diffuse the situation. So that was nice. But then, like in a relationship, there's always like a lot of good things, but it's just those little things that you just can't ignore because in the long term, it will become something bigger. So that's why. So like,
let's talk about my favorite character.
Yeah, I was literally gonna say in comparison to non-attentive Wong, we've got director Babby.
Director Babby, what a babe, a baby. Yes, that's what he is.
So director Babby. So with director Babby, he was almost the complete opposite of Wong. So the first time we got introduced to him, he found her precious umbrella. And then during this time, this is one of my highlights of Yumi-cell, right? Was that when they first met, she couldn't see his face because she was in a relationship with Wong. So she literally had a guard cell up. So it's basically when you see anyone that's attractive and that might, shake your relationship, you tend to like put your guards up so you don't really notice how attractive the person is. So until somebody else tells you, like, for example, myself and Kazara. So what then happens is that she then notices him and then he was like, oh, can you just do me a favor? Because like, I follow your blog and I know you write quite well. So I've got a job for you. Can you do it? So he was always trying to uplift her. And then from there, he recommended her to like the marketing development team, and that was actually one of her dreams, but she doesn't tell anyone because she's literally buried her writing skills. Like, they had to literally like dig the buried writing skills. So with this, he was always like just cheering on, saying that, oh no, take your time, you can do it. Whereas with Wong, it's a case of he's got a lot going on, so it's just a bit of a Debbie Downer, to be honest. So I like Babby for her because he can read between the lines and he knows a lot of things about her. So I really liked it, and lived in the same neighborhood. So that was nice.
Yeah. Also, so he just knows what, like, for example, like the difference as well is that sometimes Wong never thought about what Yumi needs. Like, for example, when I told him about the job, you could see she was excited. Yes, you have your ideas of what, oh, she shouldn't get it, which was fair. Like, don't go to the job. What about if you don't like it? What about if you don't do this? But this is passionate about. You should be encouraging her, like, try it, and then if you don't like it, then you can. But he would never. He would always like this. It was almost like a discouragement because in his
it was a discouragement. He said, "Don't do it."
Yeah, he
said,
thought
don't do
about
it.
being safe rather than what's it called? And for a guy who was broke and his company was, he was making reckless decisions.
Mm,
He wasn't being rational. Sorry, I
exactly.
have a problem with Wong. But Director Babby, there's hints that Yumi and Director Babby might get together.
Yeah, I
Which,
think so. I do like him for, I do like her for Director Babby, but the problem is, with a lot of K drama, you just don't know, because Director Babby might seem like the guy until you actually start dating the person and you start seeing their flaws.
and he's
So,
gentle,
oh, he is
gentle
quite gentle. He is
much.
definitely gentle.
Yeah, 100%. And
Yeah,
then we have some of this, like Ruby at first in the beginning, I was their
he was so
jealousy was
annoying.
with one of the teammates, but then obviously it doesn't work out that way, but then they become good friends, and
Yeah.
which is nice. So that's the plot, and that's the development of different characters
Yes.
within that.
So I think we're going to go to the highlight scene, right? And then for me, before everything went downhill, was that frog scene with Wong, okay? That was honestly the most heartwarming scene ever. So as we said previously, um, Yumi was heartbroken, right? So when she met Wong, she was very apprehensive and very dismissive, and she wasn't really interested. She only did it because she felt obliged to do it because it was a work colleague that introduced her to him. But then one came into her heart and then sneaked into her heart, right? And literally mended a lot of the broken things that happened to her. So, for example, as a result of her heartbreak, an incident happened where she literally went through a lot, and then she, like, her heart was literally fractured. Like, the love, our prime cell, which was love, was deserted on a deserted island. The hunger cell, his appetite was broken, so she couldn't eat, and then the mill that forces her to do work was also broken. So there was a lot of things that was broken in her. She was basically just like an empty shell. But then one came into her heart and then fixed everything in the disguise of a frog. And then this was really nice because I was just like, oh, that's so nice. So that's just like uh a figure, not figure, a representation of how when you do meet the right person, they can heal you from like your past old wound. So I like that scene. That was actually a very nice scene because it was very unexpected. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've forgotten what my favorite scene is. I really like the guard cells scenes,
Yeah, that's funny.
because the face was just cartoon draw, like it
Yeah.
was just used like a pencil drawing, and because yeah, I remember my favorite scene was when they went to, what's it called? They went on holiday together,
Oh
and
yeah.
Yumi booked a room where there basically was a see-through shower, and it just reminded me of our travel trip to Korea, because that kind of thing is normal. Like you just get a
We
room,
didn't
even though
expect it. Well, fortunately for us, ours had like a shower curtain, so it wasn't
yeah.
as saucy as this.
Yeah, but it was still like, why was there a seat in a room that's a twin bed? It's not even a full bed. So I
Yeah,
really like that scene because it was just like, it just reminded me of traveling and how that could be considered normal in Korea,
yeah.
just to have a
And I
bathroom.
think following on what Kazara said, I think for me, one of my highlights again are the cells. Like the cells literally carry that drama because it was so funny, like to see the inner workings of people and how they actually, what the emotions they fight and what becomes the dominant and what they perceive. Because literally in her head, she might be running around, and then because the dominant cell will be the calm cell, she'll be like, "Oh hi," but then in her head, she's like, "Oh my god, this is happening, this is happening." So I really like that.
And yeah, my
Like the girl
highlight
with the
was
naughty cell
uh,
without pants.
yeah, my highlight has to be one six pack all day, every time.
Oh my god, your naughty cell is activated. Another highlight for me is also literally the fact that it was just a pure rom-com. Okay, it was a rom-com drama. There was no crime scene, there was no darkness, because usually, even like for example, Hometown as a Child, there was just one crime scene on stuff. Yeah, I just like the fact that this was just a drama regarding the relationship and inner workings of, female and
Right.
male's mind. And it was just so nice, so smooth sailing, hilarious, a bit sad, a bit happy, just normal life, like nothing mysterious, no fantasy, no superficial, nothing, no sci-fi, just normal everyday life inner working. It's so relatable, and that's why I love it. That's why I love it, because I can 100% relate to it regardless of the cultural barrier. What do you think, Kasara?
I agree as well. I think it's just nice to see, because most of the K dramas that we watch, it tends to be the relationship starts 7, 8, and then they stayed together. But with this one, the relationship started from the 3rd episode.
Mm.
So it was nice to see like that's beginning, the end, what broke it, the reason why we needed to break up. Even if we didn't like the ending, like I liked it, but some people didn't like it.
Yeah.
We can start with the reason why they broke up, because it was very natural. It was for very good reason. They didn't just break up for no reason.
It was definitely natural. Yeah, there was no, rich or money that's throwing money or throwing what's it called. No.
Yeah.
There was no,
no
it was just natural. It was just behavior.
There was no money coming in with the cash. There was no rich, two normal people in a
and
relationship.
one thing I also like is the fact that, usually your standard Korean drama are usually 16 to 20 episodes. But for this, it was 14. And I like the fact that they knew that this is as far as they can go with the story. So let's just stop here before it becomes long-winded. Because that's what happens to a lot of dramas. Like, you just get to episode 13 and it's just a bit, oh God, I've got 3 more episodes. Whereas with this, by episode 13, you can feel like the drama was coming to, well, not the drama, the relationship per se was coming to an end, because, a season has gone, and then they both grown. Like, she became, she's became really, situated in a role in the marketing team, and then he obviously made some advances with his startup company. So you can see that as they were apart, they grew, separately. So that was nice. That was just a nice ribbon to finish everything. So I like that.
Was there any tropes and montage in the drama?
Well, with any of the tropes, they didn't know each other from childhood, unlike Untitled Chapter. But I think there was a few snowing event. There was a few snow, a lot of rain. The damsel in distress carrying her on your back and everything, that came back. That was nice to see. Yeah, but I don't think there was anything else other than that. But once we discuss it today at 6 p.m., we would ask other people, because I can't think of any off the top of my head. So
no, if you can comment in the below if you remember.
If you do remember, you can always comment. So moving on to the final part, which is moving on to the rating.
Let's not forget the OST.
I was literally going to say the OST. That's one of my favorite things. So another highlight of Yumi Cell is, honestly, if you follow me on Twitter or on Instagram, I've been talking about the fact that I miss those captivating OST that's literally looping in your head. That the wormhole, Goblin, This Beautiful Life, all this one, because it's my first life. The girl on the journey, like all those captivating one. And Yumi Cell did that for me. Like, finally, I got my OST, and I got Nightfall in, I got like a star, I got so much, and I'm like, I love it, Choyo. So so for me, I'll rate it 9.5. I definitely, because I love, for me, if you don't have a good OST, you stop at 8.5, but then with a good OST, you can go to like a 10.
Before we move on, you know what drama that you need to watch that has a good OST? Search WW.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. So, rate it 9.5 out of 10. And then for rewatch power, it's definitely high for me personally, because it's so relatable to me. Because the behavior, the mannerism, the downfall, and the excitement of the relationship is something I can definitely relate to. So I really, really like it. And the fact that it's just pure romance, and it's just realistic and a slice of life. And I really like that. So
you know what it reminds me of? Do you like Brahms? Because
yes, that's why I also like Do You Like Brahms? It's just pure, like, young adult love, or just the dynamic of trying to balance work life, relationship, and expectations, and all your friends around you getting married, and moving on to like the next milestone while you're still in the previous milestone. So I really, really do like Yumi Cell. So if you haven't watched it, definitely watch it.
I think for me, I'll give it 8.5, with Fido will be very shocked about, because I like drama with a bit more, as Nigerian people say, a fizzy. I like drama with a bit more, too much sometimes going on, where you're like trying to the plot. I like this drama because it's quite like slow, and what's it called? Like, it's that inner working. But I wish there was more. I wish we got to see, because essentially one thing I didn't like was that we have assistant Babby, and he's there from the beginning. But what's he doing there? Like, other than
season 2, innit? You never know.
There might not be. We just don't know what the budget's gonna say. But if that's how you're gonna end the drama, my guy was just there from 3, like a Nando's garden.
But that's what you call second lead syndrome, innit? Like,
well, that's not second lead, because I want that intense.
I know he wasn't actively participating, or like trying to like
put himself, like, at least even if it was just a small scene at the end where like they meet each other on a bench and the, you know, typical ending where the leaves are falling. Where
Yeah,
it's
because you know what I was saying to Karzara, I felt like a good place for them to leave it, right, was when he went, like, because I said, like I said previously, they live in the same neighborhood, right? So he went running after the breakup because he had a breakup too. So he went running, and then he met Yumi when she just broke up with Wong, and then he was like, "Oh, you can always join me," and then he started running. So I felt like if they wanted to end it, they could have ended it with her going with him to start running. So that's like, you know, it leaves it open to interpretation for the viewer.
Yeah, because he was just what was he doing throughout that whole
Anyways, we're going to be back on Instagram Live for a live discussion at 6 p.m. So, you know, do follow, like, and subscribe. And then when we get back, we shall talk more. But while if you don't have us on Instagram, you can just comment in the comment section about how you feel about Unicell, and we shall get back to you. Okay. Bye. 안녕히 계세요.
Yeah.
How do I stop this again?